to Career Uprising. I'm your host and professional career coach, Lorraine Rise. Join me as I guide you through an amazing journey of self-discovery and empowerment. If you are looking for work, changing careers, or stuck in a toxic job, then this is the show for you. I offer both practical and spiritual guidance to help you up-level and advance your career. Let's start the uprising. Hey everybody, you are listening to episode 48, Managing Your Work Anxiety with Babineau-LaRose. Hey everybody, how are you doing? It's Lorraine again, and I'm feeling fabulous. Spring is here. Business is rocking and rolling. I hope you guys are doing well. And I want to try and pump you up and be happy because when this show airs, I got to tell you guys, it'll be tax day. Sorry. It's coming up on Monday, April 15th. So hopefully this will brighten up your tax day. And we're actually going to be talking today anyway about anxiety. Speaking of tax day, we're going to be talking about managing your work anxiety. So I do, even though this is kind of a heavy topic, I do want this to be an uplifting show and an empowering show for you. And I'm going to actually get a little help from a good friend of mine. I have a special guest today that I'm going to interview in just a moment. Her name is Amanda, and she is absolutely the right person to bring on for today's show and this topic about managing your work stress and how to cope with, maybe a demanding workload, toxic job, even not having a job. There's so many angles that work anxiety can come at us from. And, and we really haven't talked that much at length about this topic. So I'm excited today to visit it in a little bit more depth because it's a really important topic. Nobody goes through life without experiencing some kind of work anxiety. Some people, it's just a bad day here and there, but for a lot of people, it's more than that. It becomes chronic. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to dive deeper into this topic. I did a show earlier on, I don't know, maybe episode 15, 16, something like that about career burnout. That would be a good companion show to listen to. And then just a couple of weeks ago, not very long ago, I did Dealing with a Toxic Job. So those are some other shows that I would recommend you go back into the archives and listen to because they'll really complement what we're going to talk about today. But we're going to have kind of a fresh perspective and go a little bit deeper, I think, into it today, and having Amanda on is going to be amazing. So before we get started, just really quick, I want you guys to know all month long now in April, we are celebrating. We're celebrating my recent rebranding and the 1-year anniversary of this show. I can't believe it. I love it. I'm just so excited. I can't believe I've reached this 1-year milestone and I just love it. So what I've been doing, if you haven't already heard, you've got about 2 weeks left from the time this show airs to act on it. But if you make the commitment and if you sign up for any one of my 3 programs in the month of April 2019, I do have to say that, you'll receive a couple of things. You'll receive a free copy of my new book, Career Uprising, Unlock Your Potential and Advance Your Career. I will send that to you. It's a downloadable ebook. You'll get a free job search focused meditation that I recently recorded and have not released before. It's going to be all about how to reprogram your mindset and get into a better frame of mind for looking for work. And I will give you a whopping 20% off the investment of any program that you choose. Okay. So now is the time to take action. If you have been thinking at all about working with me, then April is the month to do it. I look forward to talking to you and potentially working with you. So you can go to my website, careeruprising.com. It's changed. It's now www.careeruprising.com. You can request a phone call with me and we'll take it from there so you can get those benefits and get going and take action. Okay. But what I want to do now is I want to leave plenty of time for my special guest. So I want to introduce to you Amanda Babineau-LaRose. I met Amanda about 3 years ago. It's been at least 2 years, but I think closer to 3. And we met through a networking group, and we have been connected ever since. And Amanda is a licensed clinical social work therapist. She is also a certified advanced social work case manager. So she has a wealth of experience counseling adults of all ages, caregivers, family groups, all types of groups of people. And she really believes that everyone experiences change across the lifespan. And all of us need coping skills to get through those changes and overcome those challenges. And we certainly talk a lot on this show about change and transition and the stress that it can cause. And like I said before, there's so many different aspects of our working lives that can cause us stress. Long commutes, long work hours, demanding bosses. There's so many different ways that it can show up, and we need to learn how to manage it in healthy ways. Otherwise, it can really bleed into other areas of our lives. It can affect our health, our relationships, our self-confidence, and our self-worth. I think, we've all experienced that, maybe the spouse that has a stressful job and then they bring it home with them and they have a hard time separating. It just really affects your whole life when you don't get a handle on your day-to-day work stress. It becomes a vicious cycle. But the good news is that Amanda has a lot of experience helping people to move through this positively. And she's going to share some insights and some strategies that will help you to cope with whatever's going on in your work life. So let's go ahead and bring her on. Hi, Amanda. Are you there?
Yes. All right. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yay, I know. This is such a great thing. I've been thinking about bringing you on for a while because you have such a great expertise. And I think it is, even though it's different, it's similar still. We have a lot of overlap in what we do. We both do kind of coaching or counseling of a sort, but with complementary kind of expertise. So I think this is really, really, really great. So exactly. I think where I want to start is, you and I, like I said, you and I both know that chronic stress, not just that, I had a bad day here and there, but the stress that just doesn't go away, it bleeds into every area of our lives. It can affect your health, your relationships, and so on. And so I'd love your perspective on this. As a therapist, what kind of challenges are you seeing with clients in terms of managing work stress?
A lot of there are many, many reasons why people kind of can develop this work stress. However, the main things that I usually see causing it are, the biggest one is communication. So communication is there's so many layers to it into how to have effective, helpful conversation with people and communication. But there's a lot that's potentially out of our control, especially in the workplace. So for example, with colleagues and our bosses, we can try to approach our communication in a certain way, but if they're talking to us in a way that doesn't fit our communication style, it can cause a lot of stress. So, whether it's someone who is overly communicative and is very conscientious about how they communicate in a helpful way that's productive, things like that, but then the person on the receiving end isn't like that. And, for example, acknowledging an email, even if you don't have time to respond in depth, I'm sure a lot of us have had that experience of no response for days, and we have no idea what's going on the other end. So then we can start having stress and anxiety, and we can start kind of wondering, why isn't that person responding to me? Or it can heighten our stress level because of the expectations and pressures of our job and responsibilities and what we need to do. So that's one of the main things that I think is a component in most people's day-to-day jobs that can be a difficult dynamic to kind of navigate. The other things are, sometimes people don't get a raise in a timely manner, or they're not getting paid what they think they should be getting paid for their skill level. And even they're maybe feeling underappreciated. So they're not getting that appreciation, that positive feedback that helps them keep going. And so with all that being said, they can kind of feel like, well, why am I even doing this? Sure, for a paycheck. Mm-hmm. Is it even recognized? What's the point, kind of, especially if they're having an increased stress level and some anxiety. Mm-hmm. I would say, another thing is, especially middle age, I find a lot of people come to me with stress because they're feeling like they need to switch careers, or maybe they've been out of their career for a while, whether it's parenting or an illness, and they want to get back in to the workplace, but they don't really know what they want to do, or they don't know how to transition. So that's a big stress level.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's primarily who I work with, is that mid and late career job seeker. And they do have unique challenges. And I know you and I have talked a lot about that too, that with the aging parents and things like that. And that's one more stress that we have to throw into the mix here too, right? Is sometimes home obligations can affect your work performance. Sometimes it's the reverse even. You have this person you have to take care of at home or something like that that's demanding your time, and then that can affect your work performance, which then creates a whole nother cycle, right? And just kind of feeds back into each other. So sometimes the problem's the job, sometimes the problem's the home, but they kind of feed off of each other. Do you find that it's kind of integrated? When one thing in life is kind of off, it kind of affects other things as well?
Oh, definitely. Yes. And that's why I talk a lot about balance and how important balance is, and it's always shifting. So, just because what worked for me 5 years ago in regards to balancing my life doesn't mean that same recipe, I guess you could call it, would also be keeping me in balance today.
That's a good point.
It's always changing, and things are always changing in the career and at home. And, but to be able to manage that better makes you a better person, better employee, a better, parent, et cetera, et cetera.
That's a great point. So it sounds like you would advise people to kind of just stop and check in with themselves periodically and say, am I getting my needs met? What do I need? Are my priorities still the same as they used to be, even just a year ago? Because life can shift and your circumstances can shift. And it sounds like you find that people go through transitions, and what they needed before in terms of support or motivation or anything like that isn't always the same. So they have to have maybe some self-awareness, sounds like, yes. and check in with themselves to know, okay, what do I need right now to get through this situation? Or is this job still working for me? Sometimes it's that, but sometimes they just need to show up differently as well. Sometimes it's us, sometimes it's not.
Or a little bit of both.
Yeah, or a little bit of both. I work with clients a lot to kind of do what I call separating the facts from the perspectives. Okay, so sometimes there's, you use the example of the email and somebody didn't respond to my email. Well, a lot of people would internalize that and go, well, they're ignoring me, or I said something wrong, or I made them mad. And I have to think, is that a fact or is that a story that we made up? Like, what's causing you stress? The fact that they didn't reply to the email, or what you're making it mean? Right? Because there's two different things there. So sometimes you have to kind of keep yourself in check as well and say, how am I responding to this? Is that causing my anxiety, or is it actually that thing? Because sometimes it can be either one. Yeah.
So what are speaking of perspective, just real quick, this is something that I always like to share with people.
Yeah.
Perception is such an interesting thing because we're constantly perceiving things. And however, when you really think about what perception is, a lot of times, for example, right now, if I was trying to perceive how you are perceiving me, there's a lot of room for error there, right?
Yes.
You're talking about, a lot of gray area. And so, to almost keep yourself in check about that, and just to remind yourself of that little, tidbit of, there's a lot of room for error in perception. And could I be misperceiving this? So, yeah.
I could completely agree. So, what are some of the kind of warning signs that you have noticed, or maybe key indicators that someone's stress is really affecting them, that it's chronic stress? It's not just I had a bad couple of weeks or something like that. How do people know that, okay, something is wrong and, you need to make a change?
Sure. So, like you mentioned earlier, the self-awareness piece is key here. So, the first thing is being able to reflect on your actions and what you're experiencing is important. So, you want to see, is your frustration tolerance maybe lower than it has been, where little things are just frustrating you and irritating you, and you're almost feeling like, who am I? I usually get agitated like this or snippy, whether it's in the workplace, at home, or a little bit of both. Sometimes it can be one or the other, but then sometimes it can be both also. But, the other thing is there a worry? A lot of times with anxiety, people have a worry or many worries, and they almost feel like they are walking on eggshells, because of worries, whether it's how is someone going to perceive me, like we were talking about earlier, or if it's about yourself and am I going to do this wrong? Is it not good enough? Those type of things. Or if you just have tried so many different approaches in communicating with someone and nothing seems to work. So then you're just automatically walking on eggshells because you just feel like you're stuck. But some other factors that could be more of things that are happening in your personal life, not your work life, is difficulty sleeping. And by difficulty sleeping, I mean, is it hard for you to fall asleep? When you are tired and you lay in bed, you should be able to fall asleep within 15 minutes or so. A lot of people struggle with this. But then, yep.
Oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, I'm sorry. I was just going to speak to the difficulty sleeping. I think that a lot of people just get used to that and think, oh, I just have a hard time falling asleep, or that's just normal for me, right? Like we adopt these things as normal, and then we can't trace it back to what's actually causing it because we've normalized it. Like, I just need to take medicine, something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Go ahead.
And the other factor of difficulty sleeping is the not staying asleep, right? And so, if someone is getting up more than once a night, you really shouldn't be getting up once a night, but sometimes it might be a bathroom thing or something startles you or, but whatever it is, when you wake up in the middle of the night, you should be able to, again, fall back asleep easily. And at this point, it should take a matter of minutes. And if that's not happening, these are signs that something's off here. And like you were saying, Lorraine, a lot of the struggles that people have, they tend to minimize or almost over normalize them to where, oh, well, this is just life, right? Life's supposed to be stressful and we have a lot of things going. And of course, I'm not going to sleep well. But there's so much research showing the negative effects of not sleeping well. And adults should be getting 6 to 8 hours of sleep, really closer towards the 8 hours of sleep and good sleep. So that's another sign. But then the not taking part in activities of interest for yourself. So for me, it's hiking, it's, getting fresh air, it's cooking, socializing, things like that. If I'm not doing that, there's something wrong. So, and with that being said, the isolating yourself from your family, from work, not wanting to be bothered. Those are all kind of some of the significant big signs that something's off and your stress and anxiety level is probably too high.
Yeah. And those are good ideas. And I can't help but wonder, how many people are hearing these things, I hope that people will hear these things and realize that these behaviors are really not normal on a regular basis, right? Because I do think that people start to accept things as being a way of life and being normal. And, oh, I just don't like, to talk to people after I get home from work, or it's just this or that. And it's not really you, and it's not really normal. So I'm hoping that people will hear this and go, oh, is that because of my anxiety? Like maybe I do need to keep that in check. Maybe that's not really who I am. It's just kind of who I've become or let myself become because of this situation. Yeah. Yeah.
And you brought up a really good point where if it's a one-off, we all have those bad days. We all have those little blips in maybe the year, right? But when it's getting to be where it's impairing your life, when it's really changing who you are and your life and your ability to do the basic functional needs that we have to do as adults, that's when it's kind of a signal to you that, okay, this is a little too much. This isn't quote unquote normal.
Exactly. So what ideas do you have? What would you recommend for somebody who maybe is in a situation right now where they're experiencing some of these symptoms and they have chronic stress from their job? How can they get started kind of developing a better self-care routine? What would be a good starting point for them to start kind of taking care of themselves and managing this a little bit?
Yeah. So you have your basic things of, I say basic, but they're quite complex. But the things I guess you hear all the time are getting enough sleep, eating healthy, taking time for yourself, having balance in life. But to get more into the details of some of the stressors of work and or unemployment, it's making sure that you have small goals for yourself and then that you are motivating yourself to accomplish those goals. So, it's not just for children that let me restate that. So it's easy for us to think about giving allowance, for example, for children who need to get their chores done and you're teaching them responsibility. But a lot of times as adults, we don't have that system, that positive reinforcement system for ourselves. And so, a lot of times if we can make small goals for ourselves in a quarter, in a year, in a day even, I use this in my day-to-day sometimes. This is what I want to accomplish today. And if I accomplish this, this is going to be my reward, and of course you want to have it be a fairly healthy reward so that
not food.
Yeah. I mean, it can be food, right? But you don't want to do it, overwhelming. You don't want it to go overboard, everything in balance, right?
Yeah.
But the small goals and the reward system, I think is a good foundational skill for adults to start thinking about how to integrate into their life.
Mm-hmm. So one thing I want to make sure we touch on too is because, we're talking a lot about work anxiety and job, pressures from our boss and things like that. But a lot of people who I work with and who might be listening are unemployed and they don't have a job, but they're still feeling anxiety. It's just coming from a different way. That's kind of a different source of stress, I think, is when you're feeling financial pressure and you're feeling isolated because you're unemployed and you're at home every day. And I know that I've been unemployed many times, and if you don't take care of yourself, you can kind of go crazy during that time a little bit. So do you work with people who are maybe in that situation, or maybe speak to how people might be able to navigate that type of anxiety and how that might be different?
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot of parallels. So for example, some of the things that I would recommend for work stress, and just stress in general and anxiety, taking breaks and the small goals and recognizing your own accomplishments, setting boundaries for yourself, with yourself, but then with other people, a lot of these things overlap. So I'll give you example of, you want to be someone who's unemployed and having that stress of, where am I going? What am I doing? Maybe feeling down, maybe feeling anxious. again, you want to start with small goals. Each day, structuring your day so that you're feeling a sense of accomplishment, and then recognizing yourself at the end of every day. And again, this goes for people who are employed and people who are not. Recognizing any accomplishment that you've made in a day, because we don't give ourselves enough appreciation and acknowledgement. And I'll tell you that we have control over ourselves, and that's just almost it. So to depend on other people to give us recognition and some of these things that fuel us is really, you're doing a disservice to yourself. But then, making sure that you're taking care of yourself. So doing those things that aren't chores, that are not job related, that are not caregiving related, meaning whether you have an aging parent, whether you are a parent yourself and have children, whether you supporting your spouse or supporting friends, things like that. You have to support yourself first. And I always tell people that I use the analogy of on the airplane. And when you're on the airplane, they tell you have, if the plane goes down, there's something wrong with the plane, you need to put your oxygen mask on first before you put on others. And this is across the board, no matter what your stress is. A lot of times we're not doing that, and that's why we're not managing our stress very well.
Gotcha. Absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree with that. So tell me a little bit, tell our listeners too, a little bit more about who you help in your counseling practice. Because this is what you do for a living. You help people work through this. So who do you work with, or is there a certain group of people or certain challenges that your clients usually have? Tell us a little bit more about like the name of your practice and who you help within that.
So my practice is We Care Management, and we support adults of all ages, starting at young adults from those college transition, high school, college transitions, which can be a very life-changing time, all the way up to the aging population. So again, I know you mentioned earlier that we specialize in supporting people through those changes and transitions in life. So starting with young adulthood to people who are maybe going through a divorce and separation, a career change, an illness, a major illness is a big one for something that we get a lot of clients looking for support with. A move. So moving to a new area. I've experienced that. I'm originally from New Hampshire and moving to Virginia, and all my family is in New Hampshire. So, stressors in that type of adjustment. Also retirement and aging. So whether you're the aging person yourself going through loss and changes and medical and functional obstacles and maybe having to downsize or move, but then the adult children. We work with so many adult children who have children and also have parents who are needing them and really just feeling so overwhelmed, stressed, anxious, and not knowing how to kind of get through all of that.
Mm-hmm. So really, it sounds like virtually anyone who's going through any kind of change or transition or anything in their life, and they're not completely able to kind of manage it or cope with it or dealing with any kind of anxiety. It sounds like there's a lot of issues that you can help people with. Where can people go to learn more about you potentially and work with you?
So our website is wecaremanagement.com, and that's all spelled out, wecaremanagement.com. You can also call us at 703-493-0467, and you can reach out to us anytime, and we will get back to you as soon as possible and try to find a way to connect.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Amanda. I think this has been a good conversation. And like I said, this is a really important topic, one that I think that just touches on everyone to a certain degree. You know, taking care of ourselves and managing our anxiety. There's something I think for everyone to learn there. And so if there is anyone out there who feels like they need a counselor and need a little bit more help beyond just looking for a job, but really managing the emotions that go along with it and the transition, I would highly recommend that you reach out to Amanda at We Care Management. But thank you so much for being my guest today. I appreciate it. And to my listeners, I will be back next week. It'll be a solo episode, and I'll be sharing kind of a look ahead as we cap the 1-year anniversary of this show. But I'll be back with a fresh topic next time. So go out there and be magnificent, guys. I love you, and I will talk to you next time. That's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you heard today, please consider giving the show a positive review on iTunes. It would mean a lot to me, and it would help to spread the word so that others can learn about the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and I can't wait to connect with you again next time on Career Uprising.
This show was brought to you by InflowRadio.com, the best curated talk radio network for personal development, wellness, spirituality, and conscious business.